The moment I stepped out of the cab and saw the trench running like an open wound through my front yard, I knew something was wrong. Not just wrong, violated. My name is Mason, and I live in a quiet, no-name cul-de-sac where the most exciting thing used to be who won the HOA's annual flower contest. That was before a woman named Diane Tucker decided to play queen of the block with a clipboard, a bad attitude, and zero understanding of boundaries, legal or otherwise. Let me set the stage. I've been gone for 3 days on a quick out-of-state work trip. When I left, my yard had a gravel drive, 2 mature cypress trees, a flower bed I was irrationally proud of, and a sense of peace. When I came back, it looked like a miniature battlefield. The trees were gone. The flower bed? Obliterated. My driveway was chewed up like a snack cake. Dirt piles, cracked pavement, torn up roots. It was like someone had declared war on my landscaping. And there she was, Diane. Arms crossed, sipping a $7 latte like she'd just completed a noble quest. I barely had time to set my suitcase down before she walked over with that trademark smug smile. "Oh, Mason, you're back. We had to do an emergency drainage project while you were out, community safety and all." I stood there, speechless. "You dug a trench through my yard. The runoff was affecting the community trail. We couldn't reach you, so we acted. Board decision," she added, waving a manila folder like it was divine scripture. I went inside before I said something I couldn't take back. Once I cooled off, I pulled out my property survey. The trench wasn't even on the boundary line. It was a full 5 feet into my private land. That's when I checked the mailbox and found the icing on the cake. A letter from the HOA dated 2 days prior, declaring that community improvements had begun and warning homeowners not to interfere. The nerve. I sent a calm, measured email with attached surveys and highlighted boundaries. I even offered remediation at their expense. Their response? A canned copy-paste citing Article 7, Section B of the HOA bylaws, claiming immunity under a community improvement clause. The next email I sent wasn't so polite. I reminded them that HOA bylaws don't override trespassing laws or property damage statutes. I attached photos, receipts, my deed, then radio silence. Until a week later, when I received a violation notice for planting unapproved flora. They were talking about the young tree I'd planted to replace one of the cypress trees they destroyed. Petty doesn't even begin to cover it. It got worse. A neighbor of mine, Leo, who happens to be a plumber, came over and asked if I knew that the HOA had tapped into my private well during the trenching. My jaw hit the floor. He showed me the hose line still running behind my garage to a temporary irrigation rig watering the front entrance of the community. Yes, I rerouted the flow. Yes, I may have connected it to the RV septic flush for about 20 minutes. And no, I won't confirm or deny whether I watched Diane wrinkle her nose at her prize-winning tulips as they suddenly reeked like a gas station toilet. But that wasn't the real revenge. That came when I remembered something the arborist said years ago when planting those cypress trees. They were helping preserve a wet microhabitat, a protected one. That trench sat right in the runoff path of a natural drainage slope. Suddenly, I had an idea. I spent that weekend immersed in environmental law. My county had provisions for habitat restoration and wetland protection. If I could demonstrate seasonal water retention, native plant life, and drainage patterns, I could apply for a wetland designation. Enter Theo, arborist, conservationist, and probably my new favorite person. He walked the site with me, whistled low, and said, "Oh yeah, this has potential." We planted water-loving flora. Swamp milkweed, buttonbush, red osier dogwood. We laid mulch, birdhouses, and a sign, "Ecological Restoration in Progress." All legal. All documented. Diane showed up mid-planting. Stormed up in her HOA-issued golf cart. "What do you think you're doing?" "Restoring an ecological corridor," I replied. "You're making a swamp." "Exactly." I handed her a photocopy of the wetland application complete with the stamped county receipt. Her jaw twitched. "You registered this?" "Pending final approval," I said, smiling. Within a week, the HOA sent a formal warning. They claimed I'd altered the drainage system and installed non-compliant vegetation. I responded with a notarized survey, plant registry documentation, and a scanned copy of the county's environmental code. Then someone must have tipped off the county because an environmental agent showed up. She took one look and said, "You've done your homework. We'll fast-track the inspection." Diane, of course, didn't take that well. She came back, this time with a landscaper and another board member. "Can you remove these plants?" she asked him. He looked at the sign, looked at me and said, "Sorry, ma'am. I don't touch flagged conservation sites." She turned red. The board member tried to negotiate. "Maybe if you voluntarily restored the yard." I smiled. "You dug the trench. I just planted the consequences." Then came the official letter. The HOA would pursue legal action if I didn't return the land to its original condition. The timing was perfect, because the very next day the county finalized my wetland designation. That trench? Now a protected conservation buffer. Any attempts to alter it would require an environmental impact assessment and government permits. I printed out the approval, mailed a copy to every board member, and wrote a sticky note. Final landscaping violation resolved. Diane tried one last Hail Mary court injunction to revoke the wetland status. Her argument? That I had manipulated the system. The judge was not amused. "So let me get this straight," he said, flipping through the documentation. "You trespassed, destroyed private landscaping, illegally tapped a well, and now you want him to remove protected vegetation from his own land?" Diane sputtered. The judge denied her motion on the spot. Within a month, she was removed as HOA president. The new guy, Mr. Ramsey, was a retired teacher who believed in compromise. He rolled back most of the nonsense rules and told me privately, "You did the whole street a favor." But Diane didn't leave quietly. She stuck around, sulking, occasionally filing noise complaints or claiming my compost pile was unsightly. It wasn't compost. Her cat just liked to knock over flower pots. Then came the rain. The trench-turned wetland worked exactly as it should. Water filtered through the grasses and trees, birds nested, frogs croaked. My property stayed dry. The rest of the neighborhood? Not so lucky. Diane's house sat at the bottom of a slight slope. The original trench project, lacking any real engineering, turned into a network of water slides with no exits. Her backyard flooded. Her patio submerged. A miniature river ran through her rose bushes. She tried DIY fixes, sandbags, tarps, pool noodles. The fire department had to pump out her crawl space. She showed up at my door, drenched and furious. "You did this on purpose," she screamed. "You mean protecting my land? You knew this would happen. That's why I followed the law. That's why I filed the paperwork." She stepped forward. I pointed at my no trespassing sign. "One more step, Diane, and I call the sheriff." She backed away, soaked and defeated. By the end of the season, she put her house up for sale. No takers. The wetland stayed. The HOA learned its lesson. And every time it rains, I win.